Let me start by thanking everyone for posting their scenarios and making this video possible. If you were still in the life and you're placed in the Santorelli crew, how would you handle Freddie Boy and Anthony Blue? Just as I handled them whenever I seen them. I was always respectful, but kept both eyes opened. But more importantly for me, I had a snake as a captain, so I was used to staying on point. Hypothetically, can a My Blue Heaven type of situation take place? That's already happening in the sunny state of Florida, where a great deal of guys all gravitated to, former members and associates who live within close proximity to one another. If I wanted to hang around with former members, I would have never left the mob in the first place. But to each his own. For some guys, they believe in strength in numbers and don't mind coming out of their front door and seeing Frankie, a former member of the Gambinos. Me, I'd rather see Phil and Carol, organic gardeners. Hypothetically, if Michael DeSantis were to die unexpectedly, how would a replacement be put in place, considering Vic Amuso is in jail, and it would seem that it would take a while to get word to Vic and then out to the street? How would this process work since he has the final say? For starters, if the acting boss position became vacant, one of the other administration members can step in, and if they wanted Vic to pick someone, which I doubt, they can easily get a message to him and wait for his response. Keep in mind, Vic only cares about getting an envelope here and there and is totally out of touch with the ongoings in the street. If, for instance, he received a message that Joey so-and-so is now the acting boss, his response would be, okay, make sure Joey so-and-so sends that Christmas envelope to my house this month. Does anyone really believe that Vic didn't step down because he loves the Lucchese family? He loves the money. What would happen if you needed to be introduced to another member but couldn't find the third party who knew both of you? Alternatively, what would happen if there was an old-timer who hadn't been around for a while and everyone he'd been introduced to had passed? Would he need to be reinducted so he can be introduced to other members? If a person needed to be introduced to another member and no one was around, you wait till someone's available. The second part of the scenario is a little out there. There's no reinductions, and there's always someone who was introduced to a member, even an older one. If a guy comes along and starts taking things that belong to the mob, since there's no murders taking place, what would be an exception for condoning a murder? Sometimes a brutal beating sends the right message. The mob shied away from killing people, but they're still very capable of handing out beatings. However, if a significant beating took place today, it would most likely gain significant FBI attention. Here's a similar type of scenario. In the modern era of nonviolence, if a boss received information that a major indictment was coming down, how would they deal with the member or associate they believe might turn state's evidence? Again, short of killing someone, they may either threaten or give a guy a beating, or if they have proof, confront him, or completely stay away from him altogether. A crew finds out a terrorist cell is planning an attack. As a crew, they make the decision to inform the government. Would they face retaliation from their family for cooperating, or would an exception be made? Patriotism is a great thing, but under no circumstances should a member or a crew assist law enforcement. It's law enforcement's job to catch terrorists. If instead they killed the terrorist and then explained why they did it, I think this is where an exception would come into play. If the Colombo family merged with the Lucchese family, as Anthony Casso suggested, due to the internal war in the 90s, what would have been the outcome in terms of coexisting? The outcome would be the Lucchese family would have had 100 plus more members. I don't think the merging of families would ever take place, except in years to come, when the mob is weakened to the point of destruction. You may see what's left of the families merge into one, a large street gang. Following are some scenarios that were sent to me. You send a friend of yours to a restaurant that belongs to another member, and your friend gets into an argument with the waiter and walks out without paying the check. Would you be responsible? To begin with, I wouldn't be too happy with my friend, and I would also go to the restaurant and try and pay for that check. Remember, the waiter only works there. When you don't pay a tab, you're screwing the owner, not the waiter, although some restaurants hold the waiter responsible. You're dating a woman, and a member of your family shows you paperwork where she's listed as an FBI informant. What do? What year does this take place? I'm kidding. If I'm shown paperwork, I stay away from her and totally avoid her. Obviously, she's giving up whatever she knows about me too, and then I retain a good lawyer. Don't think that the FBI don't approach women, as they did years ago when they approached Paul Castellano's maid and mistress, Gloria Olarte. When the Brooklyn faction met with Stevie Crea to explain what Vic Amuso wanted as far as the acting boss position, if in the following days someone killed Mike DeSantis, what would take place? Everybody wants to kill Mikey DeSantis in these scenarios. Well, it would be obvious that a hit like that would have came from the Bronx. So without question, a Colombo type of internal war would ensue. During that time, Stevie Crea was always target number one, and with that scenario, we would have put his lights out to start with. A person gets inducted into a family, and days later has a change of mind. He tells his captain he no longer wants to be a part of the crew or the family. How would that play out? Again, I'll use the words that I've been saying a lot lately. Years ago. Years ago, he would have been killed. In present day, they're not going to shelf him on purpose, and they'll make his life miserable. But at the same time, they're not going to commit crimes or speak about them with him in case he decides to go to law enforcement. Being inducted into a family is not like joining a baseball or a football team, where if you no longer want to play, that's on you. Instead of going along with the Castellano hit, Frankie DeChico goes to Castellano and tells him what Gotti is planning. How would Castellano handle that situation? Please remember to like this video if you haven't already, as it helps with the algorithm. And for anyone who'd like to show their appreciation for videos like this, or help keep this podcast going, you can do so by the Super Thanks icon down below, or the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. This scenario would be considered the all-time double cross. And if it were a reality, Castellano would be smart not to let too much time go by and have Gotti hit. How would he go about doing that? It's obvious. He would use DeChico to set Gotti up. As for the other plotters, their best bet would be, as a doctor tells a terminally ill patient, to get their affairs in order. When the false wire was placed on you, if you decided to meet with the Lucchese's and cleared up the entire mess or misunderstanding, you forgave them and they forgave you. And in a show of good faith, DeSantis puts you as his underboss. How would you treat guys like Big John, his brother Bubsy, and Patty Del Russo? Let me start by saying that the forgiving would all be on me. I committed no sin for them to forgive me for. As far as this far-fetched scenario, one of the greatest factors was glossed over, that being trust, which was broken in many ways. But for the sake of the scenario, how would I treat the very people who betrayed me? And by the way, you forgot a name, Joe Perna. My answer is, if I told you, I'd have to kill you.